If you have ever walked into your garden with a watering can and a hopeful heart, only to feel as if the ground beneath your feet has forgotten how to be alive, then friend, this video was made with you in mind. Many of us, especially those of us who have gardened for decades, are facing a modern problem that our grandparents never had to deal with. Soil that looks like soil, but behaves like dead dust. I am talking about ground that repels water, cracks in the heat, and shrugs at fertilizer as if it no longer remembers what nutrients feel like. What is even more frustrating is that no matter how lovingly we prune, water, or whisper to our plants, nothing seems to change. Our mission has always been simple. We help adults garden with confidence using wisdom, biology, and practical tips that have stood the test of time. Today's topic hits right at the heart of that mission because this is not a video about buying more stuff. This is not about chasing bigger numbers on fertilizer bags or hauling home heavy soil amendments. This is about reviving the soil you already have using a simple, ancient liquid that activates the biology under your feet, wakes up your garden's natural processes, and brings life back into places that feel hopeless. Before modern fertilizers existed, before garden centers or soil laboratories, cultures all around the world knew how to restore tired soil using nothing more than kitchen scraps, fermentation, and a deep understanding of how microscopic life works. These techniques were simple, inexpensive, and incredibly effective. Strangely, in this high-tech age, they may be more powerful than ever because our soils need biological help more urgently than any other generation before us. So today, I am going to walk you step by step through a method that is safe, natural, inexpensive, and shockingly effective. I will show you the signs of dead soil that nobody teaches in gardening books, the ancient liquid that brings soil back to life almost instantly, and the exact way to prepare and apply it so you get real results, not just wishful thinking. This is not theory. This is real, practical, repeatable wisdom that gardeners across Asia, Europe, and the Americas have used for centuries. The best part is that it costs next to nothing, works beautifully for those who want low-effort solutions, and avoids the heavy lifting that many of us can no longer do. So take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and come with me, because your soil is not dead. It is simply waiting to be fed in the way nature understands. Before we start mixing this ancient liquid, we need to understand why soil dies in the first place. I want you to hear this with a gentle heart because what I'm about to say is not your fault. Modern gardening advice, with all its focus on chemical nutrients and quick fixes, has unintentionally pushed many of us farther away from what soil truly needs. Healthy soil is not made of minerals. Healthy soil is made of life. Billions of tiny organisms, from bacteria and fungi to protozoa and earthworms, form a living network that breaks down organic matter, creates structure, feeds your plants, and holds water like a sponge. When this living network collapses, what remains might look like soil, but it behaves like lifeless dirt. The saddest part is that this collapse often happens slowly, so we don't notice until plants stop growing. For experienced gardeners, the signs of dead soil are familiar. You water your garden, and instead of sinking in, the water sits on top like a puddle on a driveway. When you press your finger into the soil, it feels tight and compacted. Sometimes it is so hard that even a metal shovel bounces off instead of slicing in. You may see mulch that never breaks down, earthworms that vanish, or seedlings that sprout but never gain strength. These are not plant problems. These are soil problems, and they point to a deeper biological issue. Most of our soils today are biologically starved. Years of tilling, heat waves, chemical salts and fertilizers, chlorine in water, and the absence of organic matter slowly suffocate the microbes that once kept the soil alive. It is like having a fridge full of food but removing all the chefs who know how to cook it. The nutrients might be present, but there is nobody left to process them. Older gardeners often tell me, but I keep adding fertilizer and nothing changes. And that makes perfect sense because fertilizer feeds plants, not soil life. If the soil life is gone, fertilizer becomes just numbers on a bag. It sits there unused, accumulating in layers that actually make the soil harder, drier, and more hostile to plant roots. The plants aren't ignoring the nutrients, they simply can't access them because the biology that delivers those nutrients is missing. That is why this ancient liquid is so powerful. It does what fertilizers cannot do. It restores biology, wakes up microbes, encourages fungi to rebuild soil crumbs, and supports earthworms, which in turn create channels for air and water. It takes soil that feels dead and brittle and within weeks, sometimes days, transforms it into living, breathing earth again. In my own garden, I struggled for years with soil that was so compacted I had to jump on the shovel just to make a dent. But once I started feeding the soil with natural liquids like the one I'm about to teach you, the transformation was unbelievable. Water began seeping in instead of running off. Worms returned. Mulch started breaking down naturally, and plants that once stalled suddenly grew thick stems and deep green leaves without a single bag of shop-bought fertilizer. This is what older generations understood instinctively. Plants don't thrive because of what you add. Plants thrive because of what you allow the soil to become. Before we mix anything in the kitchen, I want you to step outside with me, at least in your mind, and look at your soil with fresh eyes. One of the biggest mistakes gardeners make, especially those of us who have been doing this for many years, is assuming that poor plant growth is a sunlight issue, a watering issue, or a fertilizer issue. But the truth is that most garden failures begin long before the seed is even planted. They begin in the condition of the soil itself. There are three simple tests that require no equipment, no bending for long periods, and no complicated measurements. These tests reveal the true health of your soil more accurately than any shop-bought kit. And once you perform them, you'll know exactly what your garden has been trying to tell you all along. The first test is the shovel test. Take your shovel, place your foot on the edge, and lean your weight into it. If the shovel slides cleanly into the ground with a satisfying, gentle crunch, that is what healthy soil feels like. But if the shovel resists you, if it makes a metallic clang and sends a vibration up your leg, then your soil structure has collapsed. When soil becomes tightly compressed like this, air can't move through it, water can't soak into it, roots can't explore it, and microbes, the tiny organisms that do the real work of growing food, have no room to survive. The second test is the drainage test. Dig a hole about as deep and wide as a coffee tin, fill it with water, and let it drain once. Then fill it again. Now watch. If the water stands there for more than an hour, your soil is suffocating. It might look rich on top, but underneath it's holding water like a bathtub. Roots drown in soil like this, and even drought-tolerant plants struggle. On the other hand, if the water disappears so fast it's like watching a bucket empty down the drain, then you're dealing with sandy soil that can't hold nutrients long enough for your plants to use them. Neither extreme will support healthy growth, but both can be corrected when you restore soil biology, which helps the ground behave like a living sponge instead of a lifeless container. The third test, and the most important one, is the life test. This is where we measure the presence of earthworms, and I want you to think of this as your garden's heartbeat. Scoop up one shovel of soil and spread it gently onto a tarpaulin or even onto the ground. Look closely. In a thriving garden, you should find at least 3 to 5 worms wiggling through that soil. When you see them, that is nature's way of saying yes, this earth is alive. If you see one lonely worm or none at all, then your soil has lost its biological engine. Worms tell you what your microscope cannot. No worms means no microbial food. No microbial food means no nutrient cycling. And no nutrient cycling means plants must fight to survive. If any of these tests revealed problems, please don't feel discouraged. You are not alone, and you did not cause this on your own. Modern soil dies silently, gradually, and for reasons our generation never had to face when we first learned how to garden. The good news is that soil can be revived. It can be healed, and it happens faster than you might think when you give it the biological support it has been begging for. Now that you've diagnosed your soil, you are ready to begin, and this is the part I love most because what we are about to prepare is incredibly easy, incredibly cheap, and shockingly powerful. Let's head into the kitchen together because this ancient liquid begins not in the garden, but in a bowl of cloudy water you may have been throwing away your entire life. If you've ever rinsed rice before cooking it, you have seen that cloudy white water that forms as the grains rub against each other. Most people pour that water straight down the drain without a second thought. But generations of traditional farmers across Asia, South America, and even parts of the American South understood something important. This milky liquid is one of the simplest and most effective soil probiotics on Earth. And yes, I said probiotic because this liquid doesn't feed plants directly. It feeds the living organisms that keep the soil alive. Here's why rice wash works so beautifully. The cloudy appearance comes from tiny particles of starch that release when the rice is swirled in water. That starch becomes instant energy for beneficial microbes, especially lactic acid bacteria, which act like first responders for damaged soil. These microbes break down tough organic material, suppress harmful pathogens, soften compacted soil, and create the foundation for a healthy underground ecosystem. To make the rice wash correctly, all you need is 1 cup of uncooked rice and about 2 cups of clean water. Any variety works, as jasmine, basmati, long grain, short grain, even broken rice from the bottom of the bag. Pour the rice and water into a bowl or jar and swirl it vigorously. Don't be gentle. Think of it as polishing the grains. You want the water to turn opaque, milky, and creamy looking. This isn't dust being rinsed off. This is starch being intentionally released, which is exactly what the microbes need. Now pour this liquid into a clean jar, but here's the important part. Cover the jar with a breathable material, a piece of kitchen roll, a piece of cloth, even a coffee filter, and secure it with an elastic band. Do not tighten the lid on it. These microbes need oxygen. When covered correctly, the fermentation will be clean, controlled, and safe. Set the jar aside for 2 to 3 days in a cool, shaded corner of your kitchen. You don't want direct sunlight cooking it. Within that time, something magical happens. The microbes wake up, the liquid begins to separate slightly, and the smell becomes your indicator of success. If the rice wash develops a mildly sour aroma, something similar to yogurt, sourdough, or a jar of pickles, that means the good microbes have taken over. If it smells rotten, sulfurous, or foul, toss it out and start again. When done right, the scent is subtle, not offensive. I want to address a question many have asked me. Isn't rice known to contain tiny amounts of arsenic? Am I putting poison into my garden? This is an excellent question. Yes, rice can contain trace levels, but here's the part most people don't know. Healthy soil microbes are natural detoxifiers. They bind heavy metals, break down residues, and neutralize contaminants. By adding this liquid, you're not introducing poison. You are introducing the biological workforce that cleanses the soil. Using rice wash is not only safe for your garden, it often makes your soil safer than before. When your rice wash is ready, store it in the fridge if you need to keep it longer, but try to use it within a week. Before applying, dilute it with water at a ratio of 1 part rice wash to 10 parts clean water. This ensures the microbes are evenly spread and not too concentrated. Then simply water the mixture right into the soil at the base of your plants. Don't spray the leaves. This is food for the underground world, not the foliage. As the microbes begin to multiply, they soften compacted areas, unlock nutrients that were trapped, and create pathways for water and roots to travel. Within days, many gardeners notice changes. Water begins soaking in more easily, seedlings look sturdier, mulch breaks down naturally, and the soil feels just a little softer under your fingertips. Now that we've woken the soil with rice wash, I want to take you one step deeper into the world of natural biology. Waking the soil is only the beginning. When your plants are struggling, yellowing, or growing slowly, even after the soil begins to loosen, what they need is not more nitrogen or phosphorus. What they need is guidance. They need plant hormones, enzymes, minerals, and natural growth compounds that modern fertilizers simply cannot offer. This is where the second ancient liquid comes in, and it might be one of the most powerful gardening tricks older generations used without even knowing the science behind it. It's called fermented plant juice, or FPJ, and in many ways it acts like a multivitamin for your garden. The idea behind FPJ is beautifully simple. Fast-growing plants contain the energy and growth signals your struggling plants are missing. When you ferment these vigorous plants in the right way, you extract their living essence, the hormones that tell roots to stretch, stems to thicken, and leaves to green up. And what's amazing is that this tonic works gently but consistently, making it perfect for those who want healthier gardens without the fear of burning plants or overfeeding them. To make FPJ, walk into your garden and gather about 2 pounds of anything that grows aggressively. You can use stinging nettle, mugwort, chickweed, grass clippings, dandelion leaves, even the tops of vegetables you trimmed earlier. If it grows quickly and vigorously, it contains the growth signals we want. Chop the plant material into small pieces to expose more surface area, then mix it with an equal weight of brown sugar. Well, if you don't have a scale, don't worry. Your eyes and hands will do just fine. You just want the sugar to fully coat the plant matter until everything looks glossy and slightly wet. What happens next is a little piece of kitchen magic. The sugar begins pulling the nutrient-rich liquid out of the plant cells, just the way salt draws water out of cucumbers. Except this time we want that liquid. It becomes the base of your FPJ. Pack the mixture loosely into a jar and place a clean weight, a rock, a small plate, anything that fits on top, to press it down gently. Cover the top with a cloth instead of a lid because this is a living fermentation. It needs to breathe. A sealed jar will build pressure, and trust me, the smell of a blown FPJ jar is something you never forget. Set the jar aside in a dark, cool corner. Within 5 to 7 days, the mixture will release a dark, rich, almost syrupy liquid. Strain this liquid out and keep it in a separate container. This is your FPJ concentrate. The scent will be strong. That is normal. This is nature's medicine, not perfume. When you're ready to use it, dilute 1 part FPJ with 20 parts water, apply it to the soil near the base of your plants, or use it as a light foliar spray in early morning or late afternoon. What you'll notice over the next few days is remarkable. Plants that once drooped begin to lift their leaves, yellowing fades into green, and new growth appears on tips that were previously stalled. It's almost as if the plants recognize something familiar, because they do. You are giving them a concentrated form of the very signals fast-growing plants naturally use to thrive. The beauty of FPJ is that it works with biology, not against it. There is no risk of burning, no risk of overdosing, and no risk of harming the soil. This makes it ideal for gardeners who want reliable results without the stress of monitoring complex chemical numbers. And once you see what FPJ can do, you'll never look at weeds the same way again. They're no longer enemies, they're ingredients. Now that we've awakened the soil and nourished the plants, we're ready for the final ancient liquid. The one that doesn't just support your garden, but rebuilds the entire underground ecosystem from the ground up. If rice wash is the spark and FPJ is the encouragement, then compost tea is the full rescue operation. This is the liquid that brings thousands of species of beneficial microbes into your garden in one simple application. And unlike shop-bought fertilizers that focus only on nutrients, compost tea focuses on rebuilding the system, the community of organisms that make nutrients available, protect roots, improve soil structure, and restore long-term fertility. Compost tea is often misunderstood, especially by gardeners who think it's just compost soaked in water. But what we're making here is a living brew filled with aerobic microbes that multiply aggressively when given the right conditions. These microbes are the real architects of healthy soil, forming relationships with plant roots, outcompeting disease organisms, and creating glomalin, the natural glue that turns lifeless dust into crumbly, fertile earth. To make compost tea the right way, start with clean, dechlorinated water. If you're using tap water, just fill your bucket and let it sit overnight so the chlorine can evaporate. Next, take 2 pounds of fully finished compost, the kind that smells earthy, not sour. Never use fresh manure for this, especially if you're gardening with grandchildren or pets around. Raw manure can carry pathogens we don't want in a liquid mixture. Place the compost into a breathable bag. An old pillowcase or a paint strainer works perfectly, and suspend it in the bucket like a giant tea bag. Add 1 tablespoon of molasses to the water. This is food for the good microbes, but only if we give them air. And this is the part many gardeners forget. Place an aquarium air stone in the bucket and let it bubble continuously. The oxygen keeps harmful anaerobic bacteria from growing and encourages the beneficial aerobic microbes to multiply. Within 24 hours, the water will develop a foam on top. That foam is a beautiful sign of life. It means the microbes are active, multiplying, and ready to transform your soil. At this point, the compost tea is at peak potency. Use it immediately. Pour it directly at the base of your plants or use it as a gentle foliar spray. If lifting a 5-gallon bucket is difficult, simply scale the recipe down into a 1-gallon jug. Your garden won't know the difference, but your back will thank you. What compost tea does next is nothing short of transformative. It repopulates your soil with diverse microbial life, filling in the biological gaps caused by heat waves, chemicals, environmental stress, or years of neglect. These microbes begin forming tiny aggregates, helping the soil hold water for longer periods, reducing runoff, and improving the soil's ability to breathe. As the structure develops, plant roots push deeper, access more nutrients, and resist pests and diseases with greater strength. And the best part is that compost tea provides long-term benefits that accumulate over time. You're not just fixing the season's problems, you're restoring next year's soil and the year after that. You begin building a garden that gets easier to maintain as you age because the soil becomes self-sustaining, supportive, and resilient. Together, rice wash, FPJ, and compost tea form a complete biological toolkit. They awaken, nourish, and rebuild your garden from the invisible level, the only level where permanent change happens. Now that you've learned the three ancient liquids and understand how each one plays its role, let me show you how to weave them together into a simple, gentle seasonal plan. This is the very same plan I use in my own garden today as a gardener who wants results without strain. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't demand perfect timing, strict measurements, or constant attention. It works with nature's rhythm, not against it. Let's begin with early spring, a time when the soil is just waking up from winter's rest. Instead of rushing to buy fertilizers or digging bags of amendments into stubborn ground, start with something far simpler. Give your soil a gentle awakening with a dose of diluted rice wash. Think of it as morning coffee for your garden, a small, soothing nudge that tells the dormant microbes it's time to get up again. Once you've given that microbial wake-up call, follow it with a soil drench of fresh compost tea. The rice wash wakes the microbes, and the compost tea repopulates the underground community, delivering thousands of new helpers right when your plants need them most. This combination single-handedly transforms early spring soil from rigid and lifeless to soft, cooperative, and full of promise. As the season shifts into summer and temperatures rise, your plants enter their most demanding stage. This is when they need not just nutrients, but guidance, the natural growth signals found in fermented plant juice. Apply diluted FPJ every 2 weeks, not as a forceful fertilizer, but as a gentle, consistent encouragement. Think of it as giving your plants a little pep talk during the hottest, most exhausting months. You'll start to see leaves firm up, stems strengthen, and new buds appear, even in conditions that previously would have stunted growth. Because FPJ doesn't push your plants, it supports them. When autumn approaches and your garden begins to slow down, this is your opportunity to set the stage for next year. Instead of letting leaves and mulch sit untouched on the surface, help nature break them down by applying one final drench of compost tea. You're not doing this for the plants, you're doing it for the soil itself. Those microbes will spend the entire winter breaking down organic matter, building glomalin, improving soil structure, and preparing a soft, rich bed for next spring while you rest indoors with a warm cup of tea. That's the entire plan. 4 simple steps across 4 seasons. No heavy lifting, no complicated products, just biology doing what biology does best. And the wonderful thing is that the soil becomes easier to maintain each year. You're no longer fighting nature, you're partnering with it. You're giving your soil the chance to remember how to be alive again. Once you see that transformation, once you feel that soil soften beneath your fingertips, you'll realize something powerful. Gardening was never supposed to be hard. It was supposed to be cooperative, peaceful, and deeply rewarding. To understand why these ancient liquids help your garden rebound so quickly, you need to know one key truth. Plants are not fed by fertilizer. Plants are fed by microbes. And this, my friend, is where modern gardening often gets it wrong. Fertilizers provide minerals, yes, but minerals are like ingredients locked in a larder. If the microbes, aren't there to prepare the meal, your plants simply cannot eat. When soil is biologically inactive, adding fertilizers like setting a banquet in front of a sleeping guest. The nutrients just sit there unused. Worse yet, chemical salts and fertilizers can draw moisture out of roots, tighten the soil structure, and further damage the microbial community. That's why many gardeners notice their soil becoming harder, more crusted, and more difficult to wet after years of using synthetic fertilizers. It isn't your fault, it's simply the nature of those products. Ancient liquids take a completely different approach. They don't feed the plant, they revive the system that feeds the plant. When you apply rice wash, you introduce lactic acid bacteria, tiny first responders that break down organic matter, soften compacted soil, and create conditions where other microbes can flourish. These bacteria begin reshaping the soil from the inside out, dissolving crusts, releasing trapped nutrients, and opening microscopic channels that help water flow deeper. FPJ, the fermented plant juice, delivers natural growth hormones that are often missing in depleted soils. These hormones are not artificial. They are lifelong signals created by fast-growing plants, telling other plants how to grow stronger, greener, and more resilient. In the wild, plants communicate through chemicals in the soil, and FPJ taps directly into that ancient language. Compost tea, meanwhile, rebuilds the entire underground ecosystem. Every single drop contains millions of microbes ready to colonize new soil. These organisms form beneficial relationships with plant roots, protect them from disease, and help your soil hold water like a sponge. The key player here is glomalin, a sticky substance produced by beneficial fungi. Glomalin binds soil particles into soft crumbs, giving soil that loose, airy texture gardeners love. It's the secret behind why organically managed soil feels different. Not just better, but alive. Together, these liquids restore the very functions your soil needs to perform automatically. You don't have to micromanage moisture. You don't have to worry about nutrient deficiencies every season. You don't have to constantly buy bags of soil amendments. Instead, your soil becomes self-sufficient. It learns to cycle nutrients on its own, retain water on its own, and protect your plants on its own. For those who want a garden that becomes easier, not harder, as the years go by, this approach is a gift. It replaces chemical dependency with biological independence. It replaces frustration with confidence and proves that sometimes the old ways, the forgotten ways, are the ones that still work best. Now that you understand the science and the power behind these ancient liquids, I want to talk directly to the heart of every gardener watching this. I know you love your garden, but you also value simplicity. You want practical steps that fit easily into your life, not instructions that overwhelm or require heavy lifting. And the truth is, you don't need to do everything at once. You don't need to transform your entire garden overnight. All you need is one small beginning. Start with the spade test. Even if your knees aren't as young as they used to be, the simple test takes less than a minute and gives you immediate clarity. Stand where you plan to garden, lean your weight gently on the spade, and feel how the soil responds. If it's hard and resistant, that's your first signal. If it's soft and welcoming, that's your gift. Either way, you now understand what your soil is trying to tell you. Then choose one ancient liquid to start with. It doesn't matter which one. Maybe the rice wash appeals to you because it's easy and familiar. Maybe FPJ excites you because it transforms weeds into medicine. Maybe compost tea feels right because you already have compost sitting in the corner. Whatever you choose, let your intuition lead you. I've been gardening for nearly 6 decades, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the best gardens grow from gentle, consistent care, not from trying to do everything all at once. Apply your first liquid to just one raised bed, one garden row, or even a single plant that's been struggling. Don't worry about perfection. Gardening is not a test, it's a conversation. And when you apply biology instead of chemicals, you allow your soil to speak again. In just a few days, you might notice that water soaks in a little more easily. Maybe a seedling stands a little taller. Maybe the mulch begins to soften. These small changes might feel subtle at first, but they are signs of a deep biological shift happening beneath your feet. And here's the part gardeners appreciate most. Once the soil starts coming back to life, the work gets easier, Plants begin feeding themselves more effectively, weeds become less aggressive, and watering becomes less frequent because living soil holds moisture longer. You'll spend less time bending, hauling, and struggling, and more time simply enjoying the quiet rhythm of your garden. That's what I want for you. A garden that doesn't fight you, a garden that cooperates, a garden that grows because it is alive, not because you force it. And all of that begins with one small step, taken whenever you're ready. When I first learned these methods, I didn't apply them perfectly. I made messy rice wash, I forgot a jar of FPJ in the larder, and let it ferment too long, and I made compost tea without enough air and had to throw it out. But none of those mistakes mattered because the soil forgives. It welcomes effort, it rewards patience, and it remembers how to heal. Your garden is ready. It's waiting, and with one small action, you can begin a transformation that will bless your plants, your soil, and your life for years to come. Before we close this guide, I want to leave you with a perspective that changed my gardening life forever. When we look at a garden, we see leaves, stems, blossoms, and fruits. But what truly creates abundance is hidden beneath the surface. It's the invisible workforce living in your soil, the bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, mites, and earthworms quietly working in harmony. You never see them, yet without them, nothing you grow can thrive. These tiny organisms are not decorations. They are engineers. They build soil structure, regulate water, unlock nutrients, protect roots from disease, and create pathways that allow plants to breathe and stretch. They are the ones who turn organic waste into nourishment. They stitch the soil together using glomalin, creating the soft, crumbly texture gardeners dream of. And they do all of it without asking for anything more than a little food and a healthy environment. When soil dies, this workforce disappears. Fertilizers cannot replace them. Mulch alone cannot restore them. Water is simply not enough. But when you reintroduce biology through rice, wash, FPJ, and compost tea, you are not just feeding plants. You are hiring back an entire staff of microscopic workers who will spend every hour of every day rebuilding your soil from the inside out. Imagine having a team who works while you sleep, while you rest your back, while you enjoy a morning coffee, or while you take a slow walk around the garden. They don't complain, they don't tire, and they don't quit. They simply do the job nature designed them to do. That is what these ancient liquids give you. They bring life back to a world that has gone quiet. And once that invisible workforce returns, gardening becomes easier, not harder. You water less, you weed less, and you spend less money on supplies. Your plants become stronger and more independent. Most importantly, your garden becomes a place of peace again, a place where you can breathe deeply, reconnect with the earth, and feel proud knowing that you are nurturing something living and growing, just as it is nurturing you in return. So as we close today's lesson, I want you to remember this. You don't need to buy more fertilizer. You don't need fancy equipment or expensive soil mixes. You already have everything you need in your kitchen, in your garden, and in your hands. The ancient wisdom of soil revival is simple, gentle, and powerful, and now it belongs to you. Take one small step at a time, trust the process, and let the invisible workforce beneath your feet turn your dead soil into living earth once again. Your garden is ready to welcome life, and so are you. If this story of soil revival has changed the way you look at the ground beneath your feet, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. We are dedicated to uncovering the hidden history and natural wisdom that modern methods have tried to bury. Join us as we plant a better future together. Our next treasure of gardening wisdom will be opened very soon.